My whole lifestyle, I'm someone who loves living my childhood. Because childhood, those were the days where innocence really took its play and everything was great. But when you become an adult, you know how hard shit gets. But here's the thing though. During my time, I've always had a hard time fitting in with folks is because of my surroundings, my personality, who I am as an individual. Because the thing is that when I was young, I never really got along with a lot of folks. I never really fit in properly. Because here's the thing, though, it's because of what I'm into. It's the mindset I have. And it's because of what I like and what I'm proud of. I grew up with the mindset of the 1980s. I grew up listening to the music, speaks the record shelf. I grew up watching the movies, hence the videotapes. I grew up watching TV shows, cooking methods, known products, the mindset, the personality, certain style of clothing, whatever. I grew up the style of the 80s, basically being that type of forgotten child that a decade is left behind. And yeah, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what I grew up, who I was raised by, and how that turned me into who I am as a person. But it's hard for me to fit in or find anybody I like because they don't really seem to understand exactly what I'm all about, what I'm into, what I like, because there's not many people out there who's literally into the same stuff as me. And is it heartbreaking? Yes, but at the same time, I've just grown used to it. So that's that. But here's the thing, though. When it comes to people asking me, what is it that I'm all about? What's my personality? Every time I explain it, folks get confused. But what I do is that when there's a specific thing out there that represents my personality of who I'm all about, I'm just going to tell them, why don't you just check this out? You'll see exactly who Mr. Garrison is. A movie called Ready Player One. Everybody knows what Ready Player One is. The movie is an absolute imagination brought to life. One man's vision is it's just absolutely incredible how this movie was able to take so many different things, take a simple story from a book, and turn it into an unbelievable world of imagination and just pure fantasy. Living up to the whole 80s culture, referencing a bunch of different things while staying true to its story. Some of the most beautiful visuals, outstanding music, characters that are just so believable, so impressive. The whole production in this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. I've talked about it so much and how special this movie really is to me. So if you want to see a movie of what Mr. Garrison's all about in terms of personality wise, Ready Player One is the movie. But here's the thing though, I never really adapted to see a video game out there that really represents who I am as a person until I came across this game that I can't believe I never even thought existed, and I've beaten myself up over every day now because I didn't discover this game sometime sooner. It's still relatively new. The game is called 1980X. Now I'll explain what it is in a few minutes, but let me just get this out of the way. When I kicked this game up, just from seeing the trailer, I instantly fell in love. I had a Romeo and Juliet with this. I instantly fell in love with the whole entire cinematic presentation. Just the whole samples of what games that are involved in this, what the story is surrounding, what the visuals look like, and what the music is. I had to get this game immediately, and I put my $9.99 in there. I put the $10 in there. I bought the motherfucker, and I kicked it up immediately because I needed to see what this game was all about. And sure enough, before I even pressed that play button, before I even pushed the start button, I was listening to the main theme, kids theme. I was listening to just the main menu opening screen. I am not making this up. I was literally starting to get so emotional because I just felt in my heart that I was in for a treat. And sure enough, I literally was in for a treat playing this game. just from that opening sequence. Because here's the thing that happens to me. Before I even play a game, if the main menu screen plays a certain score and just has this certain visual presentation that just gets me hooked, even when I press the play button and just the opening sequence alone before I actually play and I just leave the controller there, I just get this emotion that it's going to be a fucking journey. I had this with this game. And sure enough, folks, this game hit my heart. It hit it's everything that represents who I am. But when it comes to gaming, it's what I'm all about. It's things that I love in gaming. The basic fundamentals in gaming that involve certain different genres. Space shoot 'em ups, beat 'em ups, racing, RPGs, mazes, basic platforming. The basic element fundamental skills in gaming that any person who is a gamer should know. Just the old school stuff from when you're playing Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis. No matter what it is, PlayStation, just the basic elements, even just the original OG systems, even when you're popping quarters into the arcade machines and just you're playing with the analog stick and you're just pushing the buttons. Connecting to the video screen alone. The basic fundamentals of gaming. Just stuff that you learn as a kid and you adapt to and you learn. All that's there in this game. Everything that you grew up as a child observing and loving and just worshiping, just learning those basic skills to help you adapt to become a gamer, all that is in this game. And what this game surrounds is the love for video games and how special video games are to not just as a person, to what they truly in-depth detail represent playing in an outstanding old school 1980s coming of age story. This game was, for the $10, whatever it may be, was just hard-hitting. When I was playing throughout the whole entire thing, listening to the soothing voice of Kid's dialogue and just watching the visuals of how he was just walking through his neighborhood, talking about childhood, talking about certain memories you had. I'm not making this up, folks. I can't tell you how many times I was fucking crying because I just felt like this game understands. The developers who made this game understands. They understand. And just the personal connection that I felt to this game. It just grabbed my heart and it grabbed my soul. And just represented everything of who I am, not only as a person, but it spoke to me in so many ways. This game was like a love letter. Just like what Ready Player One. This was my video game Ready Player One love letter. This was my long-lost message in a bottle in gaming. Let's just go ahead and talk about the game. Our story takes place in the 1980s and our main character's name is Kid. He's going through the struggles of everyday life and living each day one step at a time until one night he goes into an ominous building that he's been forbidden most of his childhood until he realizes that this dark, ominous place ends up being an arcade. He then finds himself in love, away and free from society by playing video games. Folks, this particular discussion for this game is just absolutely unlimited for me. Words can't vividly describe how much relation, believability, and how much truth it speaks. Video games are an essential, a calming factor to get away from whatever society you are struggling with in your everyday life. Just the imagination, the storytelling, the picking up a controller, and just escaping yourself in a world of wonders and pure imagination and fantasy that only one person can dream. It's impeccable with the soothing music, hearing Kid's calm, collected voice, the storytelling that just hits home with you on how times during your childhood were just a lot more simpler than they are as an adult. Kid is practically all of us as a human being combined. His dialogue just hits the heart and speaks to mind clearly.
The gameplay. Throughout the game, there's 5 games total. Each one is different. They are basic, old-school, fundamental games. Beat 'em up, space shooter, racing, platforming, and I believe it's RPG 3D maze. Now, the controls are very simple. All you need is your analog stick and 2 buttons, just like when you're playing with the NES controller. It's smooth, crystal, simplistic controls. The first game that we have is Beating Heart. Straightforward. You're playing as a kid who got off the subway, and it's just a basic beat 'em up. It reminds you of Super Double Dragon for the Super Nintendo. The game itself, basic beat 'em up, just beat up the gangsters and make your way towards the end. The second game is Out of the Void. It is a space shoot 'em up, avoid the obstacles, know your patterns, and hit the enemies beyond, and just get to the final boss, learn the final boss's patterns, and kill the final boss. Now, there is a couple things with Out of the Void that I do want to duly note about it. Now, throughout the whole entire areas, you are going to be going through different obstacles, and you gotta avoid certain things. Just like in Silver Surfer, if you remember that for the NES, you gotta avoid touching the walls. If you touch the walls, it's instant death. Also, there is plenty of different obstacles coming down from above the screen and below the screen, left, right, wherever. The third game that we have is The Runaway. This to me is something that really hits home, especially within the dialogue that is transactioned. The Runaway, if you folks have played Rad Racer before, then you know exactly what to expect. All you are is just reaching from one checkpoint to another, driving the car. That's simple. But folks, before I continue on, I want you all to understand and listen to this particular dialogue that is said. If you can't tell me that this is not relating, then I don't know what will.
Hanging out in the arcade almost every night. Standing there beside the other players, watching every move their fingers made. This was the real thing. Another life was just one credit away. Down here, I found new worlds, a new meaning. I could be whoever I wanted to be. Travel to outer space, experience fantasy and fear, or just take a walk on the wild side of town. But nothing could beat the rush of the highway. The speeding cars reminding me that there was a way out, a road to somewhere. The city on the horizon. I'd drive all night to get to that place. It was about transformation. For every visit I made, every game I uncovered, every move I mastered, I felt stronger, more confident. Some guys said I was nothing but a dreamer, completely out of touch with reality. But I don't know. Down here, I was free. I was in control. No one told me where to go or what to do. The only bad part about it was having to come back up to the real world.
If you were going to tell me that dialogue itself is not beautiful, then I seriously don't know what it is you're thinking. Now, the fourth game that we got is Shadowplay. You're playing as this particular samurai who's making through the jungles in a few different stages. Avoid the obstacles, know your patterns, know your platforming, and know your timing, and make sure you hit each enemy accordingly and properly. But here's the thing though. Yes, there's striking, there's timing, and then there is platforming. But here's the thing about this particular one that you have to pay attention to the most, and that is its patterning. Because while you are running, there are 3 different platforms that you have to jump on. There's the second one, the middle, top, and then the bottom. Now the thing is that along the way, you're gonna have to do some memorization because there is a trial and error effect with this particular one. If you die in a specific area that you're not supposed to jump in, or you accidentally do jump in, you die, memorize that particular column and avoid those like spikes, for example, and boulders. Now with boulders though, those do come in patterns, but you can jump over those and you have to know the correct pattern. Know your patterns and you'll be able to get through each section accordingly. And the fifth and final game leading up to the ending is Killer Screen. This is the RPG 3D maze. You're basically going through this maze, trying to kill the dragons by doing different mechanisms of few things that are displayed within on your screen, where you choose your option and see which one works. This is more of a trial and error type of game to see which is the strongest attack towards the enemies and which is the weakest attack. Now along the way, you're going to come across different things like robots, fucking alien, jellyfish, or whatever you want to call them. So you're going to come across that, and just make sure you learn which attacks work and which one doesn't, and just follow that pattern. Now, those are the games. Different variety, absolutely simple things to learn, fundamental stuff. Now, let me talk about something that I absolutely worshipped: the visuals and music. The visual presentation is just absolutely remarkable. Going into that old school 8-bit dimension while having such an outstanding quality. The soundtrack for this game, folks, if you know me well enough, I absolutely love synthesizers. It is one of my all-time favorite instruments. I love messing with. I love learning different sounds. I love almost anything with a synthesizer. Just learning what you can do with it, making some of the most beautiful melodies you can ever imagine. It's just incredible. I love the new wave genre. I love the modern day new retro wave. I love synth wave. I love synth pop. I love anything that involves synthesizers. Past, modern, whatever you want to call it. The composing of the music is some of the best I ever heard in terms of a video game. It saddens me that the soundtrack on vinyl record is out of stock.
I'm just sitting here, and just after talking about this game, even going back just to play it for the hell of it, it really just made me reflect on all those memories I had when I was a kid. Going into the arcade, playing all the games that I remember loving, and I still love to this very day, because I love those old school arcades. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, those LJN, WWF, WrestleMania games, Mortal Kombat, Double Dragon, Street Fighter, Millipede, Galaga. Any game that you can imagine. It was in your local arcade, wherever it was that you were growing up at. A place that you just went, you got yourself a pizza, some Pepsi, some popcorn, and you just stood in that machine for hours at end. But the thing is that those experiences, I just wish arcades were around some more. But unfortunately, as time progresses and as video games have adapted with new improvements, game systems, and especially the fact that you can play games digital now, there you go. But this game was an absolute phenomenal memory lane. This game was so much relatable to a lot of things that personally affected my life, how I feel, how it affects me as a person, and how folks should really, if folks are going to judge me on a very bad standard of my personality, I tell them, if you want to know what I'm about, since I can't necessarily explain it to anybody, you can just play this game for yourself or watch Ready Player One. I'll basically recommend those two medias for you folks, and that's what I can necessarily say. But yes, this game was just an absolute journey. It was an experience, and it was just a wonderful memory lane. And the thing is that for the producers, for the writers, whomever, I would give anything. I would absolutely love the fact that the soundtrack for this game, I wish it was on vinyl record again. Because I knew it was out there for a little while, but I didn't realize it was out of stock. Because I was immediately going to buy it. But since it's no longer available, all I can do is just wish, hope, and fantasize that one day that the soundtrack for this game will be on record once again. Because I would literally, I would give my fucking left nut for this soundtrack to be on record again. Just the whole entire cover alone is beautiful. The pink color, the typical black color, just a 2-record set is a thing of beauty. But I digress. So, in terms of what I feel, what my rating is, folks, this is obvious enough. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's practically one of the best indies games I've ever played and I've ever experienced. So that being said, folks, I seriously recommend you play this game, whether it's on the PlayStation 4 or Nintendo Switch or on Steam. Get this game. It's only $9.99, $10. Reasonable price. Give this game a play. And with that being said, folks, ciao for now.